Luciano Darderi's rise is the kind that looks effortless, only if you've never felt red clay bite into your legs for 3 hours. His reputation was built from the baseline, with heavy, penetrating ground strokes that don't just push opponents back, but keep them there. And that identity has translated into results that are impossible to mistake for luck. His breakthrough ATP title in Cordoba on clay, a composed run to a second trophy in Marrakech this April, and a third in Bostad in July, all on the slowest surface, all earned the hard way. Those wins map the contour of a player whose game is grounded in force, repeatability, and movement quality, attributes that never appear by accident. The simple story says he is just a natural clay court baseliner. The truer story is that he has engineered the capacity to deliver weight through the ball, corner after corner, without the body leaking energy. That engineering looks like weeks and months of planned work that ebbs and flows in intensity, so the body adapts, not breaks. In high-performance sport, the name for that architecture is periodization, a deliberate manipulation of stress and recovery across blocks so strength and power rise while overtraining recedes into the background. You can recognize it in the way he sustains pace late in sets, in how his patterns stay intact after long exchanges, and in the steadiness of his results across the clay swing. It's the imprint of programming designed to peak when the calendar demands it. Sports science backs that logic. Periodized planning improves adaptations and reduces overuse risk when compared with random loading. And in racket sports, it is the difference between feeling flat in week 3 and arriving sharp for the second Sunday. There is also the question of how a ball leaves the strings with authority, not occasionally but reliably. That is a neuromuscular story before it's a highlight reel story. Players who train their nervous systems to recruit muscle quickly and coordinate whole chain movement change more than their physiques. They change the speed of their force, their first step into the ball, and their ability to repeat the same swing under fatigue. Controlled studies in tennis show that targeted neuromuscular work elevates service velocity, short sprintability, agility, and general power, outcomes that match what you see when Darderi pins someone deep and then turns the next ball into a finishing strike. The effect isn't mystical. It's the nervous system learning to fire in the sequences tennis demands, which is why the benefits show up in transitional balls as much as they do on the serve. Clay adds a layer of truth serum to all of this. On slower courts, you cannot fake recovery between changes of direction, and you cannot maintain strike quality without the capacity to absorb force before producing. That is where strength expressed in the eccentric phase, controlling your momentum, shows up as cleaner footwork and fewer emergency swings. Recent evidence highlights how emphasizing this quality improves sport-specific movement speed and change of direction ability, exactly the traits that let a heavy baseliner win rallies, not by desperation sprints, but by owning the space just behind the baseline. When you watch him reset after a deep left, wide ball and still land balanced into the next forehand, you're seeing the reward of that kind of tissue and tendon preparation. Functionally, the clay specialist who wins multiple titles does not merely hit hard. He sustains a high shot tolerance, the ability to repeat high-quality strokes under biological stress. The engine for that is built with power-oriented and reactive work folded into a plan that also preserves mobility and control across multiple planes. Contemporary reviews in tennis conditioning consistently recommend prioritizing methods that develop speed, strength, power, agility, and dynamic balance over generic court time alone, precisely because the modern game is a cascade of accelerations and decelerations in which the racket is only as good as the body that swings it. The result, when it's done right, is visible in rallies where the 3rd, 5th, and 9th balls carry the same weight as the first. None of this negates the value of serve and return. It deepens it. When the body learns to generate force rapidly and align segments cleanly, even without changing technique, ball speed tends to increase, and placement holds up late in matches. Controlled tennis studies show that focused power blocks can raise serve speed within weeks. Still, the subtler gain is consistency under pressure, the ability to reproduce the same delivery when heart rate is high and legs are warm. Darderi's match tapes from 2024 into 2025 tell that story plainly, from Cordoba to Marrakech to Bostad, where his first serve points won at the last stop formed the cushion he needed in a tight three-set. That's what a well-managed physical base buys you on big points: freedom to aim. The foundation lies the concept of agility in its most integrated form, not just sprinting, but modifying movement instantly in response to stimuli while maintaining balance, coordination, and muscular control. True agility blends balance, dynamic equilibrium, speed, strength, reflexes, and coordination, fully embodied, whole-body movement that no single muscle can pull off. Tennis players cover surprising ground. One study notes that pro men regularly accelerate to speeds of up to 25 miles per hour during matches and often traverse several kilometers per match in all directions. Over 80% of those movements are lateral: side shuffles, cross steps, split steps. That means the difference between staying in or missing countless balls lies in how cleanly those multi-directional transitions happen. Efficient footwork doesn't just cut down recovery time, it preserves energy, sharpens timing, and primes the body for the next explosive act. Research supports that tennis-specific agility drills, like cone patterns or ladder movements, can sharpen lateral quickness by up to 30% and reduce recovery delay between points by 15%. Ladder drills enhance first-step speed, a critical factor in getting to fast balls, particularly when defense turns to offense. Imagine each fractional edge, a faster first step, a cleaner recovery, stacking up to erase the opponent's chance to destabilize the rally. That's the hidden calculus of elite movement. Even training youths with tennis-specific plyometric and speed drills shows statistically significant improvements in standardized agility tests and in real match metrics like lateral and forward movement counts. Within 10 weeks, measurable increases emerge, not just in jump or sprinting ability, but in how many times players shift and recover during real rallies. Those are the micro moments that change match outcomes. Moreover, footwork isn't only about going fast, it's about going fast and not falling apart. Proper agility training improves stability, reducing the risk of sprains or overcompensation injuries. Learning to absorb and redirect force during play ensures that a clay court slide or sudden pivot doesn't result in a rolled ankle, but in a clean reset. When Darderi executes a wide run and still unloads his forehand with precision, or maintains depth during long past the baseline rallies, that is the payoff of extreme agility conditioning, not flashy, but fundamental. His movement capacity lets him dictate rally speed, fatigue opponents, and stay in control even when the points stretch on. Beyond the mechanics, there's a subtle yet powerful psychological effect. Agility training teaches the body to perform under fatigue in neurological patterns. Once match pressure rises, Darderi's feet respond as they've practiced thousands of times before. That drills confidence into muscle. Researchers acknowledge that better agility gives players not only physical reach, but psychological ownership. When you can trust your feet, you trust your game more. Tennis serve, especially one that rockets down the tee at over 200 kilometers per hour, it's easy to focus only on arm speed or timing. But what's happening is a chain reaction of force from the ground, through the legs and core, culminating in a hyperspeed snap of the upper body. In that final moment, the moment the racket impacts the ball, every ounce of force generated along that kinetic chain comes under the authority of the upper body. As a result, players like Darderi don't just rely on arm speed. They cultivate upper body strength that transforms that speed into consistent, fearsome power. Upper body strength isn't just about bulging biceps or a sculpted chest. It's the ability to recruit muscles quickly and with precision. In the serve, the shoulder's internal rotators, supported by the chest and triceps, swing the racket. At high levels, shoulder internal rotation during the acceleration phase of the serve can reach staggering angular velocities of over 2,500 degrees per second. That kind of motion demands muscularly strong, neurologically explosive movement, and it demands that the upper body muscles can both drive and then safely decelerate that motion. The chest, shoulders, and triceps produce the pushing and pulling forces necessary to strike through ground strokes and launch serves. But just as critical are the antagonists, the rotator cuff muscles and upper back musculature that act to decelerate the arm after contact and protect the shoulder joint. Without balanced strength that covers both the concentric bang and the eccentric catch, players risk breakdowns in control, overuse injuries, and erosion of technical precision. Grip strength, as fundamental as it may sound, is another hinge in this system. Elite players can generate grip forces up to around 600 newtons, far exceeding non-players. That strength isn't just for holding the racket. It prevents unwanted flex during high-speed strokes and ensures precise energy transfer from shoulder. Developing both grip strength to hold tight and grip endurance to maintain control through long matches provides a crucial guardrail for a powerful shot to remain accurate and repeatable. When upper body strength is properly developed, it changes performance quality in tangible ways. TennisGuide.org notes that stronger arms and shoulders translate into greater shot power, accuracy, spin, and improved serve and volley execution. World Tennis Magazine underscores how building upper body and core strength fosters reactive strength and endurance, qualities that allow heavier balls and more forceful serves to be delivered consistently, even deep into matches. On top of the physical outputs, upper body conditioning helps shield the player against common tennis injuries. The repetitive and asymmetrical nature of strokes places excessive stress on structures like the shoulder and elbow, leading to conditions like rotator cuff strains or tennis elbow. By strengthening the arms, chest, shoulder stabilizers, and upper back, the body distributes forces more effectively and enhances protective capacity. In simple terms, strong muscles act like shock absorbers through repeated, high-speed strokes. Matt's Point, a tennis-specific strength coaching resource, highlights the often overlooked effect of upper body strength in preserving range of motion while adding performance capacity. Many junior players shy away from heavy pressing or arm work, fearing loss of flexibility, but in truth, appropriately programmed strength training can expand both strength and mobility, especially in overhead. Lower body power lies at the core of how a tennis player like Luciano Darderi launches dramatic overhead winners, pivots into penetrating ground strokes, and lands safely after explosive jumps. When those moments require his legs to drive upward and absorb impact, the strength and timing of his lower body system, especially his quads, hamstrings, glutes, and knees, are the silent heroes of performance. At the heart of that explosive capacity are plyometric motions, the stretch-shortening stretch-to-contract cycles that allow muscles to spring into action with remarkable speed and efficiency. These exercises aren't about controlled lifts. They're about harnessing the body's elastic energy, creating high-velocity output from a split-second rebound. Sports scientists understand these cycles as prime avenues for boosting power, agility, and speed, qualities that let a tennis player push off to intercept a drop shot or explode vertically for an overhead smash. When executed well, plyometrics also improve tendon resilience, equipping muscles and connective tissues to absorb force during landing and redirect it effectively rather than yielding to injury. That landing is no afterthought. It's vital. The knees in particular must withstand high-impact landings while remaining mobile enough for the next split-second deceleration or jump. Strengthening the muscles and stabilizing structures around the knees strengthens those landing mechanisms. Research from functional training labs echoes that lower body power training enhances joint stability and coordination, especially in the knee and ankle, bulletproofing athletes against common high-impact sports injuries. More than just reducing risk, concentrated lower body work shifts into higher-level performance. Explosive drills paired with strength training activate the fast twitch fibers that govern immediate power output, as well as train the nervous system to fire rapidly and sequentially, exactly what top-tier tennis movement demands. Athletes with greater leg strength demonstrate measurable gains in stride length, acceleration, and change of direction speed. In tennis, power must translate directly into movement and shot execution. Darderi needs his legs to not just launch him upward, but keep him grounded enough to twist rhythmically into a heavy forehand or slide into a deep defensive position. Lower body work that includes squats, lunges, and plyometrics builds that dual capacity, force production and controlled landings, with the glutes, quads, hamstrings, and calves sharing the load. Plyometric training is especially potent. Tennis-focused analyses highlight drills like box jumps, depth jumps, and lateral bounds for their ability to boost on-court explosiveness, agility, and reactive speed. These movements translate into quicker first steps, cleaner recovery, and more forceful court coverage, all delivered with better control during landings and directional. An eye-opening detail, even small gains, like a 5% uptick in vertical power or recovery speed, can mean the difference between reaching one more ball or conceding the point under elite-level pressure. Structured training approaches further amplify these benefits. Complex training, pairing strength lifts like squats with plyometric moves like box jumps, leverages post-activation potentiation to enhance explosive output. By first preloading the neuromuscular system in a heavy movement and then following with an explosive movement, athletes coax out power spikes that mimic on-court needs, accelerating into a jump or sprint after loading. Meta-analytic findings reinforce the efficacy. Combining plyometric drills across upper and lower limbs yields marked improvements in sprint speed, critical for approaching shots or chasing down opponents, and in the coordination that underpins smooth, efficient movement. So when Darderi's legs drive him into the air and then land him in tennis-ready compression, the result is not luck, it's architecture. The synergy of explosive force production and controlled landing mechanics enables those dramatic on-court moments without breakdown or injury. Importantly, strengthening one structure, like quads or glutes, feeds into the entire system, creating integrated stability and responsiveness during the most volatile points of. Tennis is an orchestration of kinetic energy, starting from the ground, flowing through the hips and torso, and erupting into ball speed just when racket meets ball. At the heart of that orchestra lies the core, the muscular fortress of the trunk. When Darderi unleashes a forehand that penetrates the court or transitions to an aggressive serve, what's driving the strike is not arm strength alone, but how well his core modulates force, stabilizes his posture, and sequences energy through his limbs. A controlled study with college tennis players revealed that focused core strength training, not generic strength work, took serve speed from 132 km to 139 per hour on average, compared to only 3 km per hour gains in the control group. That 7-kilometer bump matters. It translates into deeper serves, heavier ground strokes, and margin-creating pace down the line. What's more, tennis players in an experimental group that underwent core stability routines also dramatically improved their forehand speed and accuracy. At a technical level, core muscles serve as the anchor for power transfer. Electromyography studies show that firing of deep core muscles, like the transversus abdominis and multifidus, often precedes any movement of the limbs. The core braces and sets posture so that hip rotation or leg drive doesn't dissipate into spinal wobbles, but chases forward as applied force. That creates a stable launch point for the arm and racket to deliver velocity. These adaptations, greater control over the trunk, better energy transfer, and improved accuracy under stress, are mirrored in broader assessments. A controlled 14-week core strength training regime among collegiate players delivered over 8% gains in movement speed compared to just 1% in a general training group. That isn't just faster footwork, it's dynamism rooted in a stronger central structure. From a functional sports medicine perspective, core stability is also foundational to spatiotemporal control. Being able to resist perturbations in rotation, especially during sliding on clay, recovering wide balls, or lunging for low returns, depends on trunk endurance and coordination. A study involving core stability programming in tennis participants demonstrated measurable enhancements in functional movement patterns. And it's not just science. Players, coaches, and physiotherapists speak to the core's role as the proximal engine that allows distal precision. As one well-voted community note on a tennis forum puts it, at least 80% of power on every tennis stroke comes from the legs and/or core. The arm is like the end of a bullwhip. Relaxed technique amplifies energy use. Another analogically framed insight emphasizes the kinetic chain, with the core being the critical pivot that channels power from thighs, core, back, chest into the strokes. These voices echo the physiological. The core stabilizes posture, channels rotational torque, and ensures that the impulses generated by the lower body don't leak or distort before reaching the racket. For Luciano Darderi, whose style is built on heavy baseline hitting and consistent pressure on clay, a stout core isn't optional, it's his keystone. It allows him to load, rotate, and unwind his body through long rallies without losing form. It helps him stay tall and repeatable in the grind. And when he lifts for balls or scrambles for deep returns, that core connectivity lets him recover rhythm and strike again.